Well, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. I have a gentleman all the way from Spain. We're going to get that in a couple minutes here. Guilherme Miranda, how are you doing, sir?
Great, man. And you?
Good. So you told me you're in Spain now.
In Portugal.
Portugal. So when I lived in Toronto, I had a number of friends that were Portuguese background, and it was funny because they had some friends that were from the Azores, and they would always give them a hard time about being from the Azores. So I remember that really, really well. The competition that's over there. How long you been over there?
Great, man. Great. Couldn't be better. It's a nice winter day here, which compared to Scandinavia and probably where you are right now, it's you won't even call it winter, So it's great.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. So you've been you've recruited Raquel to give you a hand, and I mean, what I can tell you about her, she sends me a lot of her artists, and they all kind of are cut from the same cloth in that they're on the heavier side of the music things, but they're also very driven, and it's a good combination of them and her because she's very good at promoting her clients. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about you?
Oh man, it's very hard to talk about yourself and your own work, 'cause especially when you're doing this this kind of work that I do for so many years, since since I'm a teenager, I'm on this, and then I became professional after a while, because I finished college, I did everything, and then I was like, no, let me go for what I really want to do after I put my diploma on my wall, and then since then that I'm very used to people to make reviews of the albums I'm playing in, or of the songs I'm playing in, the singles or the concerts, So then I'm very used for people to do reviews of my work, not talking about myself, Yeah, but I'm a professional guitarist for many years now, for more than a decade, and I always put it like this to people that have been playing bands, So it's very different. There's very different sides of and aspects of being a musician, because there is the studio musician, there is the musician that plays at the nightclubs, at the bars, that plays on the proms, that there's this variety, and there's the musicians focused on bands and studio and songwriting and stuff, which is my case, So I'm this guy. I play in bands, heavy bands,
So, and we'll talk about your bands and your projects in here in a second. But obviously, in this day and age, too, you're a musician, but sometimes you have to be a promoter. Sometimes you have to be an agent. Sometimes you have to be a manager. Sometimes you have to be an accountant. And there's, and I know, there's no real diploma for being a musician. Like, you can't go to a university and find, an entire business program for musicians. So, obviously you live and learn, but I mean, you're a guy that's probably self-promoting yourself and doing a lot of the stuff on your own. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, man. Especially nowadays, I believe mostly after the pandemic, man. In my case, for many reasons, and for many, we could put it for many contingencies, for many stuff that happened during the pandemic that made me, not only me, man, the whole world had to rethink about a lot of their modus operandi, so to say, So of course, when you're playing independent band, in an underground band that you're starting everything, of course, man, you have to be the booking agent, you have to be the tour manager, you have to be the stage manager, you have to be the roadie. And it's pretty much, and then you go there and play, So it's, I always say that if you're playing soccer, that would be like you were doing the corner kick, and then you run there and hit the ball with the head to score the goal. You have to do this all on your own. And but then I start to be in bigger bands and have like some more of a structure with a management label, more structured tours. And got my new endorsements, which it's that little steps that make your life easier and better, and you feel proud of yourself, like, okay, man, now I have all these guitars that I could never afford. Now I have this all these pedals, cables. I was very fortunate to be able to get this at a good age, play all the festivals I wanted,
Yep.
in my life. So this was very, very big check in life, And I think it helps you as a musician to not be frustrated and grumpy and just saying that things doesn't work nowadays, Although I understand who does that all the time because it's tough business. So after the pandemic and during the pandemic was when it struck me hard because I was like, man, what now? What now? Because the online world is just growing, and this format that I've been doing for a while is inspired on a 80s, 90s format. You go there, you write an album, you go on tour, you let the magazine stock, and the label is doing their thing, and you get a booking agent. So it was the format I was doing, and then after the pandemic, I woke up to see that this is just one of the ways of doing this nowadays, and it's getting more and more difficult and more rare to fit in this structure that you see, for example, Gene Simmons talking about of his reasons of why rock and roll is dead, for example, because he's not talking about the music or about the rockers or about the audience. He's talking about the structure. You know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
Before you had a structure that was much more defined, So, for example, with my band now, we were on number 5 out of top 10 best albums of the year, according to Metal Hammer, and the first place there is Metallica, And before, like 10, 20 years ago, if you would be on a top 10 like this from a magazine, that's it, man. You get as many concerts as you want, jump on tours, life is going. Nowadays, no, man. It's like if you were on these top lists and stuff, you have to worry much more on how to promote this than on how many lists you are. I don't know how to put this because I'm still figuring out this thing. So this question of now you have to be your own promoter, do your own thing, create your own packs. It struck me like 2-3 years ago, and now I'm on this run, not only with the band, but I taking matters into your own hands and start to do this internet thing closer to the people and getting out of being only on that structure that I've been so used to,
Yeah, and I mean, I was fortunate that my YouTube channel got monetized, so I get to sit in on some YouTube tutorials and different sorts of things. And people mistake the numbers, so they see views and they think they're doing well, but it's about engagement. Because if you've got a lot of views, but people are just clicking on for a second and leaving, you're not building any sort of organic fan base whatsoever, right? And a lot of people miss that mark, so they get caught up in oh man, I got 10,000 views in this video, but your watch time is 5 minutes. That's not anything that's really going to be of any significance. So I get what you're saying, because I do remember back in the day with magazines, you'd make it. Next thing you know, people would go out and try to source your album because I never heard of that album before. I wound up on this list. Why is that? And they would go and they would buy it, right? And so I get what you're saying there. Did you see any traction out of that when you wound up on that list?
Yeah, man, there is some traction and stuff, but I was used to something very different. The traction was completely different from what you get nowadays. And what I'm putting here is that I'm learning this, I'm relearning this process right now, because I felt like, okay, man, I can't fight this, and I can't be that, as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, I can't be that grumpy guy saying like, things were better in the 1500s, because that's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help me, and it's not going to make the world better. So I just thought like, okay, there's a learning curve here, and I have to enter this world and go for it. Unfortunately, I'm very outgoing, I'm very good with communicating with people, and I like to do that, man, So from all these meet and greets and, signing sessions and being on stage gave me like a very easy flow with people. And to do this on the internet, for me, it's coming quite naturally,
Yeah, and you will know that. So my podcast came out of the pandemic. I mean, I'm a musician myself. We couldn't play. I figured
exactly.
5 weeks I'm going to be back at it. The recurring theme for everybody was, if you took advantage of technology, you didn't sit in the corner feeling sorry for yourself, wondering if things were going to go back. You did some things. You came out when things opened up again. everybody that I know that did that is having some form of success in the business. Seems to me like that's I guess the idea that you took and it worked out for you.
Yeah, man, probably. Of course, on the pandemic, when I was doing this, I was super pissed and grumpy, and I think it's because I believe, man, that the habits that you develop, they get into your, not only on your psyche but on your whole physiology. You know, I think I was very turned and tuned in into touring mode. So even my schedule during my day at my apartment back then was like I was waking up on the times I was waking up at the tour bus. My lunch was more or less the time I was having lunch on tours, and I was sleeping at 2, 3 a.m. Like, you were a musician and you know what I'm talking about. So like every musician, and you know, I had my routine. So during the pandemic, that to readapt to this reality that I was not on the road was a different world for me, because I was feeling very like I had too much energy to spend in a room in an apartment, you know, or even in a house or whatever I could be at. So then back then the only way I found to cope with it was to write new songs and try to do some collab projects, which for me they end up on nothing. They didn't make me money or anything else, but right now I'm collecting the fruits of it, you know, because I learned a lot of music production that I was already developing in the pandemic. I intensified my musical production skills, my songwriting, my mixing. I talked to a lot of people, and then I've done a lot of collab projects. And these collab projects ended up being my band nowadays, and most of the musicians and producers I cooperate with, I developed that during the pandemic. So right now I'm seeing this paying off, like 2-3 years after, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, you're definitely I would put you in that class of people that you know, took it as an opportunity to learn, and now you're seeing, like you said, the fruits of your labor. And so tell my viewers the name of the band, well, bands that you were in previous, and the project now, just so that they can go and find it. We'll do a little piece at the end to make sure they know where to go.
Yeah, I played in an underground band, many underground bands before, but I had one in Brazil called Crow that we with K, pretty death metal, more on the verge of bands like Christian and all that generation there. So I played with that band, made 2 albums, 2 EPs. Then I jumped into Entombed and Entombed AD. Then we established this Entombed AD thing, and I've toured for the first 2 albums with them. I was involved on Dead Dawn recordings and like composing the demos and stuff, but I didn't record the album because I went to play Rock in Rio with my other band while they were doing that. And then I recorded with Entombed AD a single, an album, and some other extra stuff, live stuff. And then when Entombed was over, AD, after LG Lars passed, he passed like almost 3 years ago, I believe, now. And then I started my own band, DIETH, with right after David Ellefson got out of Megadeth. We were talking about, like, you know, let's make a new band. We were going to do a song collab together, and then we decided to start the band because the songs really clicked and they fit in together. The sound was very good. It's very good sound. We got like super good mixer, monster drummer, so called Mihal. So we decided to move on as a band. So it's DIETH. Our album is brand new and fresh. It's not even 1 year we released it, and it's the band that we end up in these lists and stuff of best of the year. So it's totally worth to check it out. And then and then I developed a lot of these projects, collabs, and, you know, teach guitar. And now I'm with Loudstack because I started doing stuff for Ugritone. Probably people that are watching us are familiar with Ugritone. MIDI drums, some guitar tones they had, impulse responses, and stuff. Is a very established company. And one of the CEOs from Ugritone, he opened like a parallel company more focused on some new technologies, including this new Nero amp modeler called Loudstack. And they're very focused on a lot of stuff that I do, especially making your songwriting easier at home or on the road, or even in the studio, but simplifying songwriters' lives. And then I jumped into this project now, and Ron is being my big partner. I think we have like a very bright future ahead. This is just the beginning, and we're starting with the right fate, so to say.
Well, and again, like everything that you're saying is stuff that we've been emphasizing. We were emphasizing during, and now this is exactly what I've been seeing, right? Like people that use the time in a positive way. I'm listening to everything you're saying, and now I think your biggest problem in life is how to figure out your schedule, because you get so much on the go. That's a direct result of doing the work and seeing the results down the road.
Yeah, man, it is. And it's a matter of patience, and it's a matter of time. I was just talking about this with Ron these days, because when you're figuring out a new brand and a new product, because the Neuro amp modeler thing, I would sum it up. You're a musician. Are you a guitarist, or because
Drummer.
I see a guitar behind you?
Yeah, I'm a drummer.
Drummer. But probably you're familiar with hearing the term impulse responses and things like that.
Yep.
And then we have amp profilers, like amp profiles like you use with your camper and fractal and stuff. And then came this new technology that is called Neuro amp modeler, that I would say, like in a nutshell, for people that are not so nerdy about it, it's pretty much your impulse responses for guitar amplifier, for guitar heads. So we record that momentum of the amp, and you have exactly the sound of that amp and of that pedal in a profile in one click. And it's a new product in a new company with a new approach. So me and Ron were figuring out a lot of things on the way, because you just learn by doing it. Like with everything else that it's new and freshly released. This Neuro amp modeler technology, it's 1 year now. So it's very new. I think not even we know where this is going to land, So then we have to figure out all this stuff. And what I was talking to Ron was, okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves, because probably some things are going to take off in 3 to 6 months. Some things we're going to see the result in 2 years, but we have to put all the effort, 100% right now. So we'll build up,
So here's what I'd like you to do, because you get so much on the go. Tell my viewers where they can find your music and how they can find more about you, but then tell them where they can find this, the information on this technology that you're talking about, because I've got thousands of musicians on my podcast, and that is, I get questions all the time about where can I find certain things for guitars, drums. I do a gear review piece. So, just drop all that on us.
Oh, yeah. So let's start with Loudstack, because you're going to go loudstack.com. Probably we're going to have the link somewhere here where you guys are watching. And then you're going to go to Guitar Tones there, and there's my Guitar Tone pack. It's like, I believe right now it's $29.90 US. So it's very affordable. And we have a lot of options there for amplifiers. But the sound is pretty much done, man. So you're going to have like amps to play thrash, death metal. I have a lot of profiles there for you to play Swedish death metal, because it's very difficult to find this old school, especially Swedish death metal sound, because it's a very analog sound that will depend on a pedal that goes in front of your amp. And if you don't do that right with the Boss heavy metal pedal, or any pedal that emulates that sound, you're not going to get there. So this spec came from the necessity that Ron had to provide this sound to people. As far as he was doing this for a long time for other companies, he was like, man, I need a really good digital tool for people that do their Swedish death metal sound. And then he got me, because I worked with some people in studio, and I worked many years on stage playing this. And he said, like, I want you to capture this, because there are some feelings that you have it from the experience of doing it. And I believe that we have the best Swedish death metal profiles so far, digitally done, that you can use on a plugin. I think it's ours. So you go there, loudstack.com, and you're going to enter on the Guitar Tones. And with my band, you just do DIETH, DIETH, DIETH band. You're going to find us on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. We're signed with Napalm Records. We have an album out now called To Hell and Back. And it's been like a very good journey with this band. And the response we're having from the audience is amazing. So go there and find DIETH and this Loud Stack Pack, and you're gonna get a whole complete idea of my work.
You and this conversation has been great, and I'll tell you why. One thing that I think is very, very important about this, and we don't get it in the musician community, but sometimes, and you would know this, musicians sometimes are thought of by people outside the music community as maybe not too smart, not too intelligent. We do music because there's nothing else for us to do. You're talking about you're talking about some heavy duty business stuff. You're talking about some heavy duty technology, and you're doing some things that not a lot of people do. So I think that's a really important piece that people can actually see that, hey, you know what, musicians bring value. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, man. And it's like as I said, it can sound, depending on how you put it, it can sound like you're complaining about it or something. But I just came to a realization that the old modus operandi of the musician, sitting there and waiting for the phone to ring so you jump on a tour bus, which I think that everybody is in a tour bus, that it's a real touring musician. We're never like this, waiting for the call and stuff. You're making the calls and putting things to work. But I just came to a realization that there's much more to it than I expected, and this thing with the technology just got me more and more into it. So it's funny because then you suppress and you surpass the stereotypes, because I think that being so busy with music, with playing, with studying, I still study a lot, and I like that. And I feel if I stay a few days without playing guitar or something, it's like not going to the gym. You start to feel heavy, you start to feel unbalanced. So I still study a lot of stuff, a lot of themes, a lot of different things. I'm always learning something new, some new chords, some new scales, some new approaches. And I believe that this, man, puts me in a mood to always be in a good shape, to eat healthier, to, be as far as I can from overdoing things, if you know what I mean, because in the musician's life, everybody knows that the presence of alcohol and other stuff is very intense. So I believe that this new approach to music brings you to another place, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for doing this. If you can believe it, we've talked for almost 26 minutes. It's hard to believe, but when you get on a roll and you're getting some good stuff on there, you don't stop. It's important. Best of luck. I want to keep in touch with you. I keep in touch with all of Raquel's clients because she has so many different and interesting people that she works with. And, you guys are exciting to be around because nobody seems to be, there's something always on the go. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Talk to you soon.